Today's beautiful daf is Gittin 28. What a blessing to Hashem, bracha, thanks to Hashem that we're able to study the daf together this morning. So the Mishnah on Kafches Amud Aleph on 28a starts, Maybe get, the person who's bringing the get, the agent, and he leaves behind the person who sent him as an older man, or as a sick person. So we know the basic principle is there's no get after a death. So he has to have had delivered the get in order for it to be valid while the person was still alive. So how do we know if he's still alive? So no sin law, the agent can give her the get with the assumption that he's still alive. Bas Yisrael and Asul Kohen. So too, if there's a regular Jewish girl who's married to a Kohen, and while she's married to the Kohen, she can eat the truma, the sacred food of the Kohen, but once he's no longer alive, she cannot eat it. So her husband goes overseas. At that point, once her husband has gone overseas, she can eat the truma with the assumption that he's still alive. Number 3, the third case, we're in 28a in the middle. The third case is Hashalech Hataso Medina Sayam. Let's say she sends off her carbon chatas. Somebody sends an agent with their carbon from overseas. Again, we know a chatas can only be brought while the owner's still alive. The agent can bring forward the sin offering, the assumption that the owner is still alive. So we have all 3 cases. So going back to the first case, person brings the get, we can assume that the owner is still alive, even if he's old. So it says, Rabba, when do we say that we could assume the person is still alive? Only if it's a zaken that has not yet reached the age of understanding. It has not yet reached the age of gvuros. What's gvuros? That's strength, because the pasuk says in Tehillim, it says that a person's life is 70 years and gvuros is shmonim shana. That's what it says in Tehillim 90. So therefore, we believe that this person is still alive as long as he has not yet reached the age of gevuros, or a chola, or if he's only sick, we could still assume he's still alive. Sharov cholam l'chaim. Most of the people get sick still live. Avol zaken sheikvil gevuros. But if he's reached the age of gevuros, i.e. 80, Rash says, vigoses, and he's not only sick, he's goses. That means he's lying on his bed about to die. He's on his deathbed. Sharov goses and misa. Most of the people who are gosesim, they do end up dying. So then we can no longer give him the assumption that he's going to live. So the Gemara says, Eisvei Abaye challenges Rabba's explanation, because it says, maybe get v'nichu zaken. It says he brings the get, and the Bryce says if somebody brings the get and he leaves behind an older person, I feel ben mea shana, even if he's 100 years old, no kayim. We have to assume that we can assume that he's still alive. So this is indeed a refutation of Rava, because Rava had said that it's only until the age of 80 that we could assume he's still alive. And here Abaye says we could assume he's still alive until the age of, even at the age of 100. So this seems to be a direct refutation of Rava. Gemara says, no, it's possible. Abaye saying, even the iflig. Yeah, generally speaking, you only live to the age of 80. But once between the age of 80 and 90, we can't assume he's still alive. But after 90, once you beat the norm, then the actuarial tables are messed up and they're mixed up, and we can say that you're probably going to be still alive. Meaning there is a danger point in a life, and that's from 80 to 90. But after 90, we assume you're still alive. Ramile Abaye or Rabba. So Abaye threw a challenge to Rabba. It says in our Mishnah, Tanana maybe get person brings the get, and he's older. The agent brings the get on behalf of the older man. We assume the man is still alive when he gives the get. But we have a contradiction to that. Contradiction comes from a brisa. The brisa says, person says, this is your get. One moment before I die, you'll be divorced. He doesn't want to leave his wife as an aguna. So he says one moment before, he doesn't want to leave his wife to do yibum with his brother. So he says, one moment before I die, you fall, this will be your get. Then, because of that statement, asur achol b'truma miyad, she's not going to be allowed to eat the truma immediately, because we have to say every single moment he might die. And so therefore we see from this brisa that we are concerned about death. Our Mishnah says we're not concerned he died. From this brisa we see that we are concerned that he died. So how do we deal with this? So that's what Abaye threw against Rabbah. So Rabbah responds, Rabbah responds, Truma Gittin Karamis. You're asking me a question you're asking me a question on a get from Truma, the fact that we don't allow her to eat Truma, but we do allow the get. Is that your challenge? You're challenging the concept of a get from Truma. Truma Afshar. Truma, we're going to be strict. Because Truma, listen, if she doesn't eat the Truma, she'll have other foods. The whole supermarket is filled with foods that are not Truma. So therefore, it's not a comparison. But the get, if we're not going to allow the agent to bring the get, it's Efshar. There's no possibilities. Get low Efshar, there's no possibility. How are you ever going to bring a get via an agency? And then the women will end up as agunot. So therefore, you have to allow it by a get, we have to rely upon this principle, but we can't do it by truma. Gemara says, "V'rami truma truma." Why don't we compare the case of the truma in our Mishnah to the case of the truma in the Brisa? It's a direct question from two trumas. Our Mishnah says that a truma, if her husband goes overseas, she can eat it. Whereas this Brisa says that she can't eat the truma if he says you're divorced 1 moment before I die. And that's the question. Because Tanan, it says in our Mishnah, our Mishnah says we could assume he's still alive and she could eat the truma. If he says this is your get 1 moment before I die, she can't eat the truma immediately. So we see that because we're concerned that he's going to die. So within truma, we have a contradiction. So the Gemara, how does the Gemara answer this case? The case of, he said, this is my get 1 moment before you die. That case is different because she actually is going to become prohibited to him. She actually is going to become prohibited to him 1 moment before he dies. Meaning, say, really, we're not worried about death. That's the assumption of the Gemara. But this case is different because she's going to become prohibited. And so therefore, since she's going to become prohibited, we have to assume that perhaps this is the moment where she's going to become prohibited. So Rashi says the Gemara knows already from the outset that this is not a strong answer. Because Maskef or a Papa immediately challenges my inspiration. How do we know that the husband is going to die first, and therefore she in fact is going to be the one who's prohibited him? Maybe she's actually going to be the one who dies first, and then she'll never end up having been prohibited to eat the truma. Abai says, okay, this case, I'll draw the distinction. The distinction between the Mishnah and the Brisa is that they reflect two different Tanaim. That the Mishnah says we're not concerned about death and she could still eat the truma if her husband goes overseas. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Meir says we don't have to be concerned that somebody died. And Rabbi Yehuda's position is consistent with the Brisa, because the Brisa says she can't eat the truma immediately because maybe he's going to die at that moment. And Rabbi Yehuda says we have to be concerned about the possibility of death. And how do we know that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda have this dispute? Because we have it about a Brisa that we cited on Daf Chav Hey, and this is a Brisa that appears 10 times in Shas, the Brisa about whether we have to be concerned that a barrel of wine is going to break. If you have a barrel of wine and you didn't get tithed and you want to drink it and say, we'll make the tithe afterwards, we'll physically separate the tithe afterwards. So right now I'll just declare the tithe, but I won't separate it. The Rabbi Meir allows you to do it because he's not concerned it's going to break. Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say you can't do that because we always have to be concerned about the possibility of something breaking. Nor is assuming that's the same dispute as here. Rabbi Meir says we're not concerned someone died. Rabbi Yehuda says we always have to be concerned about an imminent death. And this is the brisa. Okay, somebody takes wine from the kusim, meaning it wasn't tied, and he, for some reason, he can't physically separate it. Either it's Erev Shabbos, or maybe he doesn't have any utensils. He says, Shnei lugin shani asadu hafresh. He says, these 2 lugin of wine that I will separate. Harei and truma. That's the truma. That's 1/50th. Asara, this 10 lugin that I'm now going to take out. That's this 10%. That's my sarishon. That's or not. That's the tithe to the Levite. Then the tisha, then the 10, then the 9 that I take out from then. That's my sheni. And he immediately goes ahead and drinks it. That's Rabbi Meir's position. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Omrim, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon, they say osrin. They prohibit it. So we see from here. Hold on one second. Okay. So we see from here that Rabbi Meir says that we are not concerned about the death, and Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon say we are concerned. So that's the distinction between the 2 braisos. Rabbi gives a different distinction. Rabbi says a fundamental principle, Shema meis lo chashinon. He says that the person has died already. We don't have to be concerned about that. We don't have to be concerned that the person has died. Shema meis lo chashinon, because we can assume, we can make the assumption that the person is still alive, and so therefore, if the Kohen goes overseas, since he didn't divorce her, she's not going to be prohibited. But this one who's giving the get on the condition that it'll take place 1 moment before he dies, then certainly we have to be concerned, because we have to be concerned of Shema Yamos Chashinan. We're not concerned that maybe he died, but we do have to be concerned that maybe he will die. And we know that not everybody's alive has died, but everybody's alive will die. So therefore, that's the fundamental distinction. Shema Yamos Chashinan, because that everybody has a chazaka that they will die. Not everybody has a chazaka that they've already died. So therefore, that's a distinction between the Mishnah, which says you can rely upon that still alive, and the Brisa that says you can't. So if that's the case, why doesn't Rabbi Meir, going back to the case of the barrel of wine, no, the keshema yamasu, no, barrel of wine will break. And so therefore, if you're saying that we're not concerned that it will break, then why is Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon prohibited there? And they argue in that case. So we know that Rabbi Yehuda is concerned about Shema Yamas. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda midiskarta shani no the afshar the masar shomer. The case of barrel wine is different. You could protect it by giving it to a guardian to watch. So therefore, you don't have to be concerned that it will break. And so therefore, they're arguing about that case. What's the reason why they're arguing? Because since the barrel of wine, you can give it to the shomer, and so therefore, Rabbi Meir is going to say we could protect it from breaking. And so therefore, Rabbi Meir says we don't have to be concerned about Shema Yamos in that case. So Ma'azkifla Rav Masharshia challenges that, yeah, but who's watching the watchman? Arvayach Arvatzarach, the person who's watching the watchman needs a watchman. So the guarantor himself needs a guarantor. Now, or the watchman himself needs a watchman. So therefore, Rabbi Meir should also be Choshesh L'Misa there. Everybody, both Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, say we're not concerned that the person actually died. Shema Yamos Tanai, whether he will die is a Machokas Tanayim. Rabbi Meir says we don't have to be concerned. Rabbi Yehuda says we do. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon say we do. Says the Mishnah that if you send off your chatas from overseas, we can assume that the owner is still alive. So the Gemara says, "V'haba'ina smicha." How could you bring the korban on behalf of the owner? We need the owner to place his hands directly on the animal, and presumably that cannot be done that cannot be done by an agent. Rashi tells us why. V'tanya b'Torah Kohanim, Rashi says, it says it in the Midrash, Torah Kohanim, Yado v'ol yad beno, Yado v'ol yad shlucho. It says specifically Yado to mean it can't be done through an agent's hands. So Amar Yosef, the carbon nashim. We're talking about the carbon of women. Women are not required to do smicha on the animal. If a woman did a carbon that she has to bring kares, and she does not do smicha, because by smicha it says daber al bnei Yisrael v'samach. Bnei Yisrael somchen ve'emenos Yisrael somchos. So only the Bnei Yisrael do the leaning on the animal, but not the Benos Yisrael. Our Papa says a different answer. What we're talking about here is mechatos ha'of. We're talking about the chatos ha'of, that the sin offering of a bird, and so therefore there's no smicha on the fowl. Tzricha on the bird. Meaning, and we need all three cases. The case to tell us about the chazaka, the person's still alive. We need the case of the sick person. We need the case of the Kohen going overseas, and we need the case of the carbon. Says the Gemara. The Yashmin get, because if we just said this by a get that we could assume the person who sent the agent is still alive. Sure, we have no choice there. We have to assume he's still alive, or else we can never do a get through an agency. Avol truma, but the case of truma, the case of truma is possible to do through agency. But truma, it's possible to eat other food. Maybe we won't say we'll rely upon the chazaka that the Kohen's still alive. We asked me on truma. If we said the case of truma, we would say that the reason why we rely upon it there is the zimnin do avshar, because it's possible that sometimes they won't have food to eat, so she needs to eat the truma, v'chatas ha'of. But a sacrifice, maybe we'll say misfeika lo azara. We're going to assume that the owner is still alive, and then out of an ambiguous situation, we're going to be bringing chulin, unsanctified food into the courtyard, which is a tremendous sin. That you're not allowed to bring the chulin into the azara, because so you're not allowed to bring the chulin into the azara, and so therefore we might have thought we don't say it under these cases, and so therefore we have to need this principle in all three cases to tell us this concept that. So to tell us this concept that it's okay to rely upon the chazaka. The Rishonim have a difficulty. We say, why would it be chulin into the azar? Because even if the owner died, the chatas does not become chulin. The chatas becomes disqualified, and it would die. So why does the Gemara call it chulin? And so therefore, maybe the Gemara means to say a different word rather than just chulin. Okay, so now we're up to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Shloshet Dvarim Amar Rebbe Elazar ben Parata of Nei Chachamim. Rebbe Elazar ben Parata, unusual. I don't remember his name on other places, but there's so much I forget every single second, so that doesn't mean anything. Rebbe Elazar ben Parata said three things before the Chachamim. And they say, you know what? We agree with what you're saying. What's the first thing? Al Ir Sheikifua Karkom. There was a city that there was a siege around it. There was a siege around the city. And so he says we could assume that the people in the city are still alive. The city, Rashi says here, the city is still in trouble. It's meturefes bayam. It's shaking around in the water. And we could assume that people are still alive. We don't. And somebody was being brought out to go into a case of capital punishment. In all these cases, Rebbe Elazar ben Parata said, we could assume the person is still alive. But an Ir Shekavsha Karkum, a city that was conquered by the enemy, Misfina Sha'avda Bayam, or a ship that was completely sunk at sea. That's what Rashi says. Rashi says Sha'avda Bayam. Rashi says the implication is that it has sunk. And the previous one was Rashi says it has not yet sunk. But in this case, Rashi seems to imply that it has sunk. But the Rambam says that means that it's starting to break. And so therefore, the ship is not sunk yet, but it's lost a lot of it's in huge distress. Yotze, we don't, and somebody's going out to be executed. Vayotze we harek, somebody's going out to be executed. No sanaway and chumrei makom, chumrei. No sanaway and chumrei chayim and chumrei mason. We place upon such a person where the enemies already attacked the city, where the ship is sunk, or where person is going out to be actually executed. We give them the stringencies of life and the stringencies of death. What does it mean, the stringencies of life? That if it's a woman, if she's married to a Kohen, if he would be dead, she can't eat the truma. So we have to assume he's dead and she can't eat the truma. But if it was a bas Yisrael, bas Kohen to Yisrael, while he's alive, she can't eat the truma, but once he's dead, she can. But in this case, we have to give her the stringencies of life and assume he's still alive, and so she can't eat the truma. So Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Shanu, that which we learned, that somebody who's taking out to be executed, we place upon him the stringencies of life. That if he's going out, Yotze li hareg, if he's going out to be executed, we place upon him the stringencies of life, says Rav Yosef. When do we say that? Only by a Jewish court, because there's the concern that they found a merit for him and they ran the case back. But if it's a court of idolaters, we say keeping the gomer way dino chato. Well, by a court of idolaters, once they gave the ruling to be executed, mikto katli way, for sure he was executed right away, and so therefore we don't give upon him the stringencies of and maybe still alive. Abai says to his Rebbe Rav Yosef, the court of the idolaters, we can't assume that he was executed. Maybe they're accepting a bribe, and they kept him alive. Amar so Rav Yosef says no. Kishakli, when they take bribes, that's before they issue their ruling. After the Persians issue their ruling, they don't take bribes anymore. So the Gemara challenges Rav Yosef. Again, Rav Yosef is saying that we only place the Chomrei Chaim on the Jewish court, but not on the idolatrous court, because the Jewish court, maybe they'll bring him back to life because they'll have a merit to his name, so they won't execute him. So we challenge from the Mishnah in Makos. It says, any place where two people stand up and they'll say, they say, we testify that this person was sentenced to death in this court, and these were the witnesses. We're going to execute that person on the basis of that testimony. And we see from here that this is a question, says Rashi, because we don't say, well, maybe after they were sentenced to death, he found the merit for him in that court. We don't say that. So we see from here it's not common, and we don't have to be concerned about it. So the Gemara says, no, that case is different because he's Boreach Shami, because maybe Dilma Boreach Shami, maybe because once he ran away, he lost the presumption that maybe they'll find the merit for him. It totally changes the scenario. Tashma, another attempt to challenge Rav Yosef from a brisa. It says, Shava ben Bezin Shal Yisrael. He heard from the Jewish court. He hears from the Jewish court that they said that this person has died, and this person, and Shama mi Bezdin. Excuse me, let me start again. He hears from the Jewish court that this person is dead or this person was executed. Yes, then you can marry his wife on the basis of that court's testimony. Become mantrisin shel akom, from the idolatrous court, ishponi meis ishponi nerag al yasius isha. Here from the idolatrous court that this such and such person is dead or executed, you can allow his wife to remarry on that basis. The Gemara says, what does it mean meis v'nerag? My meis v'nerag. What do you mean dead and executed? Ilema meis mamish. If you want to see, it means he actually died. Nerag mamish, actually executed. It can't be, because if that's the case, why by the idolaters do we not allow his wife to remarry? And then we have the principle. Anybody who speaks just regularly, we would innocently, we would believe them. So the idolater should be believed. So it must be that we're referring to as Elav Mace Yotze Mace. Mace means that he's going out to die, and Nerag is Yotze Leherag, that he's about to be executed. And we still say for Gittin, Bezin Shal Yisrael Yasilas Ishu in the Jewish court, we allow the wife to remarry. So we see from here we don't have to be worried that they found the merit even after he's staying out to be executed. So it's a question on Rav Yosef. So the Gemara says no, La'olam Mace Mamish means he actually died. But Nerag Mamish, and he actually was executed. If that's the case, why don't we believe the idolater? Why don't we believe the idolater? If they're just speaking innocently, shouldn't we believe them? Gemara says, yeah. When do we believe the idolater? That's only by something that is not relevant to them. But something that is relevant to them. Then they no longer can be believed. Then there's the assumption that maybe they're lying. Alternative version of this says the opposite. Rav Yosef says, when do we say that we put the stringencies of life and death upon them? Only if it's an idolatrous court where he was being taken out to be executed. On top of 29a, but by a Jewish court, keeping the nafikli dina katoa, once they got the ruling to be executed, in the idolatrous court, we're going to give them the stringencies of life because maybe they took bribe. But in the Jewish court, once he was being brought out to be executed, we're going to assume that they were executed right away, and so therefore you only have to place the stringencies of death, but not life. Abaye challenges Rav Yosef according to this version. Maybe they found the merit for him in the court of the Jews. And the Gemara says, no, only before the court issued its ruling. But after the court gave its ruling, it's not possible that they found the merit anymore. Gemara says, we have a proof to support Rav Yosef that from the Jewish court we don't have to apply the chumrei chaim, the stringencies of life, and in the idolatrous court we apply the stringencies of life and death. But it says kol makom sheyayidu shnayim yomer ma'idin anu esish poni shenigmar dina b'bezdin lo shal poni uponi edav uponi poni edav harei yarig. We see that in the Jewish court, as long as people testify that if they said we saw the court and then he was being brought up to be killed, then he could be killed. All right, so we see from here, then the Jewish court, they kill them right away, since we're saying that we don't have to assume that they found the merit. Mar says, no, Dilma Barel Shani, it's not a proof, maybe right away, so it's different. Mar again wants to try and bring a proof for Rav Yosef's reading. Tashma, Shama, Bezin, Shal Yisrael, same exact cases before. Shama, Bezin, Shal Yisrael, Shal Yomer, Mishponi, Meis, Ishponi, Nerag, Yasiwas, Ishto. You hear from the Jewish court that they say that such and such a person has died or is executed, and you allow the wife to remarry. But from the idolatrous court, we don't allow the wife to remarry. But why? It can't be. How do you want to say this? Now, how do we read this? My mace, my nerag. My mace, mamish, or nerag, mamish. If you want to say it's literally he was dead or executed, if that's the case. Why by idolaters will we not allow the wife to remarry? Why don't we believe them if they're speaking innocently? So it must be it means we're taking them out to die, we're taking them out to be executed. And still we say, and we still say that in the Jewish court, we assume that once they take them out to be executed, for sure they died. And so therefore this supports Rav Yosef that we don't have to give the stringencies of life. The Gemara says, no, no, it means that they actually died, actually executed. And if that's the case, why by the idolaters do we not believe them and allow her to remarry? And so if that's the case, and the Kavas why don't we believe the idolater? Gemara says, when do we believe the idolaters? When it's not relevant to them. But when something that is relevant to them, we don't believe them, and maybe they're going to lie for their own specific reasons. Okay, we want to wish everybody a good day. Nice to see